Very good morning to the class. So we are starting with a new unit today, and this unit is all about biology in human welfare. So in the last few units which have been studying from say first PU till the last unit, you have studied about various aspects of biology. You try to study the plants, you try to study the animals, the various tissues they have, the various kinds of cells they have, their functions, their activities, so on and so forth. And from this particular unit, we are going to talk about the application aspects of biology. So here, under this studying of applications of biology, we have three broad units. The first one is something that we call as biology in human welfare. The second one is a recent branch of biology which we call as biotechnology, and the third one is using this biology to see that human life exists for much more time on this planet, talking about ecology, some conservation techniques, conservation of natural resources and so on. So in this particular unit, which is called as the biology in human welfare, we are going to talk about some of the old applications of biology. Now when we say old applications of biology, please note that we started to have agriculture, and from there we started to have a kind of deep insight into what makes our environment better. Now with that particular idea, we started to explore the world around us and try to see which would be the good food, which food would give you energy, what fertilizer if you add will increase the food yield, so on and so forth. And not only that, we try to realize that microorganisms are the ones which cause certain diseases, and some of them which cause certain which also are very helpful in various things. So in this particular unit, we are going to have three important chapters. In the first chapter, we are going to talk about how this human health is kind of controlled, regulated by various other factors. What is health? What is disease? How do we get disease? What do you mean by health? So these are the aspects that we would like to study in this first chapter, human health and disease. Now after we learn about human health and disease, we learn about the second chapter, which is called as enhancement in food production. So what do we study there is, what would be the best ideal land, water, fertilizers, manures that we add such that the yield becomes maximum. At the same time, we will also try to think of animal husbandry, beekeeping and many others as a source of food. Okay, so that would be our next chapter. And then we have the third chapter where we talk about various microorganisms, where we talk about antibiotics, we talk about food industry, we talk about microorganisms being used in biotechnology, and at the same time many microorganisms which cause diseases. All this, how to kind of control them. So these are some of the topics that we would be covering under this particular unit. Now please make few things very clear now. Now last year and even for the last few units that we have studied this year, you would have noticed and realized that it was something that was kind of only biology that you were studying, right? But from when we are talking about application, you cannot be so specific that you will be studying only biology or only chemistry or only physics. Many times you see that we learn science as a holistic branch, try to understand each and every aspect of that, use physics, use chemistry, use biology, and all this should yield in a better scientific knowledge which helps us to understand ourselves and our world better, right? So with that in our mind, let us start off with the first chapter under this, the 8th chapter, under the unit first chapter. In your textbook it is the 8th chapter, which is human health talking about human health and disease. This is something which I am sure you know very well what it is. What is health, what is disease, and what exactly would be taught in this particular chapter. You will get a fair idea, right? Okay, so in this particular chapter we are going to talk about various diseases caused in humans. Okay, then we basically kind of try to define what are the basic terminologies, like what is disease, what is health, what is immunity, what is immune system, so on and so forth. We talk a bit on what is immunity, how to keep our immunity right. Then we talk about two important diseases. One is a syndrome which is called as AIDS. I'm sure you know the causative organism is HIV, one of the syndromes which is as of now deadly, right? So we will be talking about that particular disease, that particular syndrome, and we will also talk about one more disease which is called as the cancer, which kind of seems quite common these days. Nevertheless, quite a scary disease. So we will talk about some of the things related to the cancer, and finally we discuss about the drugs and the alcohol abuse in this particular chapter and wind up with the chapter, right? Okay, so we will learn what exactly health is in the first place. What is health? Someone will come and ask you, are you healthy? Ah, yes, I am healthy because I don't have cold, I don't have fever. Do we say that? So what exactly is health? What do you think health actually means? Any idea? Okay, please note that health means it is not just, not having cold and fever. Health is a condition where we are not just talking about the physical body, but when we are talking about health, we generally consider two branches. One is something which is very, very physical, which is our state of body, and the second one is something which is abstract yet plays a powerful role in maintaining our health, which is called as the mind. Okay, so no one asks where is mind. Many people confuse mind to brain and intelligence. That's different. Let's not talk about that. But you see that mind and body, both of them should be healthy. If you just feel that you are healthy but you don't have any disease, and you feel that you might get fever very soon, surely you will get, right? That is because your some instinct inside your mind is telling that you might fall sick. And many times if your body is healthy, you can always be happy. So it's something like, your mind controls your body and your body controls your mind, right? However, though we say all this, many Greeks and Ayurveda system believes that basically the well-being of body and mind, good state, if they are there, we call that as healthy person, healthy individual. Now, how will I get to know if the body and mind is really in the state of a balance? Now that is happening, that is possible when there are certain liquids which we call as humors. Okay, humor is basically the liquid. Okay, you have studied or you will study in immune system that we have certain blood cells which keeps moving, and these blood cells we call them as the humoral system, which helps to fight against organisms, foreign particles. So here we have humors, and humors means liquids and some kind of secretory fluids. Now if they are in balance and they are working well, you call that to be a state of balance. That is the time when you call it as healthy. Okay. Now people had started to see uh, what exactly is health. Okay, when we are having good health, and people, I know many doctors, who just look at the pulse and they say how our body is. They will tell about some of the problems that our body is facing even without asking or talking, just by feeling the pulse. So long time back, people said that the person with black bile, okay, bile is that liver, okay, so or a very hot personality. Hot personality is always fast moving and um, easily short tempered, that kind of people. They generally would have fevers. Okay, though they said all this, it was not completely a proven method. Okay, so in Ayurveda they call it as the pitta. If the person has more pitta, they will generally have fevers and things like that. Anyway, so we have this kind of things where there are many things which works out many times fine, but nevertheless with our idea of science and knowledge, it was very difficult to prove that. It was at this time that William Harvey discovered blood circulation, right? So William Harvey discovered blood system. He discovered the circulatory system, and then he said that whether the person has black bile or white bile or whatever it is, we cannot say, because this William Harvey said that blood is getting circulated and the normal body temperature relation to the liver is of no use. Okay, so people started trying to find out what exactly is happening inside the body. In fact, even now if someone goes to that doctor whom I know, any new person scientist, they would say, no, we do not want to believe this. If he does not keep a stethoscope, it is not possible for them to diagnose properly. But there might be many methods which we are not very sure. Anyways, so people, after William Harvey's method of finding out and proving that blood circulation is something that is kind of keeping the body temperature straight, then this theory of black bile and good humor hypothesis, all that failed. Okay, and then came one era in biology where people started thinking that mind is very powerful. Mind, if your mind is good, if your neural system is good, your endocrine system is good, then your immune system will also be good. So this was one more thought. Okay, keep your mind active, and I think that pituitary gland is in our brain, so that gets proper getting all the exercises, it will secrete some of the things, controlling all the other endocrine system, and that in turn controls the neural system, it controls our immune system, and when immune system is good, our health is also good. So this was one more theory that ran for some time. But finally, when man with his experiments said that mind is not just in brain, then again this theory fell back. And so right now we are still in the same confusion as we were around 100 years back. So what exactly is health? We can clearly say it is a stable state of body and mind. But what is body, what is mind, and what determines health? Is it the body or the mind or the humor or the endocrine system? Or for that, we do not have any right single approached answer. So for us to be healthy, our entire system of body, when I say body, I am talking about all the organs functioning, all that should be fine. And then when I say mind, it means our thoughts, our nature, all this also has to be good. So this is how our health is kind of determined. But you know what? Though I cannot define some of the sure tips for when our health is good, there are some of the things by which I can say when my health will not be good. Okay, when my health is not right. Now, one of the main factors, which of course is not in our control, which determines our health, is a condition of inheriting certain genetic disorders. Now, what exactly does this mean? It means that, you know, whenever we are born with, we get our DNA from our parents. Now, if by chance we inherit the bad genes, some of the genes which are not working properly, they are deficient or there are some kind of defects, then the child will always exhibit those deficiencies and defects, and those are very, very difficult to treat. Now then we can very well confirm that the child will not be in a very good state, very good health. The second important factor which determines our health, which is sure cause for our ill health, is infections. Now what are these infections? Basically, infections is a condition where you have some unwanted microorganisms growing. Please note that you can just not say microorganisms, because even now, though I am healthy, you see that on my skin there's a layer of microorganisms. In the gut we have lots of microorganisms. So microorganisms are an essential part of my body. If I am not useful to anyone, I would always say this. If a person tells that he is useless, I would say don't say that, because he is still useful. He might not be useful to other human beings, but he still hosts 3 million microorganisms in his body, and that also is a good deed, right? So basically, infection happens when an unwanted microorganisms enter into our body. The wanted ones are there, but the unwanted ones start growing. And when they start growing, what would happen is, they would they're all parasitic. So they would change our metabolic activities. They would stop our metabolic activities, invade our body, invade our organ systems, and cause some kind of discomfort. So those discomforts are generally something which can be easily noticeable. Say for example, I have a cold caused due to some flu virus. Now that flu virus, that kind of causes a lot of discomfort. I cannot speak, I might have a sore throat or running nose, or maybe I will be very lethargic, just feel like sleeping, so on and so forth. So those infections are the causes, or those infections are conditions, states where unwanted microorganisms grows in the body, and when they grow in the body, it brings out lot of changes, and these lot of changes are not very conducive for us. So that is infections. That's the second one, when I would say that we are absolutely not healthy. And the third one is when I say that our health is good but it goes from good to bad, is because of some of the choices that I would make, which is our lifestyle. So because of our lifestyle, you see that there are some kind of changes that happens in our body. In fact, now you can relate very well. In our last chapter, evolution, we've seen that man has grown very, very step by step, in a very methodical manner, and right now he is like as we are, right? So this form is obtained not from one single day, but there's been a gradual change. And you see that man was moving in forests, Man was eating good food, fresh food, raw food, and all this. And now our idea of living life is changed. We would like to sit and watch TV, or uh, we would like to use some kind of mobile all the time, okay, or we do not exercise, we do not eat good food, we eat junk food, not the freshly prepared food. So all this are going to have some change in our body and mind. And so you can very well say that if our lifestyle is bad, it gives rise to a bad health. Right? So that is what determines our health. Now if we are talking about all these aspects, so what exactly is health about, and how do I define it? Please note that health is not just the absence of disease. Okay, it is not absence of disease. So can I say it is absence of disease? No. So even if there is no disease, he might not be healthy. Okay, so what other thing would be defining our health? Do you think it is something like physical fitness? Physical fitness, oh yes, physical fitness can be, right? But actually even that does not. Okay, when we are talking about health, it is not only these two, but you should say that we are talking about 3 to 4 important uh, you know categories. The first one is about our physical being. The second one is the mental being, and the third one is the social being. So all these 3 aspects, okay, they are to be satisfied, they have to be stable, they have to be happy. So physical happiness, mental happiness, and social happiness, all these 3 have to be there. Now when people are healthy, you see that they are always happy, they are cheerful, they are very, very efficient in their work. Okay, now suppose a not healthy person is taking 8 hours to do the work, a person who is having a good health would take hardly 5 hours. Because when you are healthy, you are physically fit, mentally fit, and you are also socially fit. So this increases your productivity, and because you are productive, it also increases your economic prosperity. Okay, now not only that, generally people who are having a good health will always have good lifestyle generally, and they eat good food, they exercise, and all this also leads to increase in the longevity of the people. Okay, it increases the longevity of the people, reduces maternal mortality, infant mortality, all these would be reduced, and at the same time, they are very, very happy people who spread happiness, so the whole world becomes better. Okay, and talking about health again, you see that people who are generally healthy would eat balanced diet, they would have a wonderful hygiene, and they would exercise every day, do some kind of yoga or some kind of sudoku and things like that to keep both their physical and their mental state well. They would also have some kind of a societal responsibility, they would have good friends, so social well-being is also maintained. Okay, and they are kind of people who are showing some kind of discipline, they get their vaccinations done at the right time, they kind of maintain their hygiene. Okay, they eat good food, keep their water resources clean, and all this actually helps them to maintain good health. Right now, sometimes when we are, though we are having a good health, sometimes we might suddenly see that one or more of our organ systems or the organs would not work well. Okay, that uh, that is what we call as disease. Disease basically is a condition uh, opposite to health, being healthy, diseased, where you see that a person's organ system is not working well. So there might be some kind of signs, symptoms which shows very clearly that it is not working properly. So they might have some kind of symptom that can be seen at the phenotypic level. Right now, when we're talking about diseases, we have two types of diseases. The first kind of disease is called as infectious disease, and the second one is called as non-infectious disease. So there are two types of diseases, infectious and non-infectious. Okay, so what are infectious disease? Now generally any disease which spreads from one person to other, from one organism to the other organism, we call such diseases as infectious disease. Say for example, we have common cold, which is an example for infectious disease. I'm sure in your class you would have noticed one child gets cold, the whole class, or at least few benches, students who are sitting in next few benches, they all would get cold. That's because infectious disease. So they are the diseases which are infectious diseases, which are called as infectious diseases. Now some of the infectious diseases are, can be treated. Most of them are treated, but not all of them again, because there are some of the diseases which are fatal. We do not have treatment to those diseases even now. Okay, then we have non-infectious disease. Non-infectious disease is basically where the diseases are not spread from one person to the other person. So how do this, what happens then? Maybe because of some kind of stress or some kind of changes that happens inside the body, or maybe some kind of accidents. All this leads to stopping of the work of some organs or the organ systems, and they are called as non-infectious disease. Say for example, diabetes. Diabetes is a non-infectious disease. One of them gets the disease and it's not spread to the other person. It's non-infectious. But yes, it's not that non-infectious diseases are all treatable. It's not that. They would have to have a regular routine care that they can take care of. Also, I was just telling you about cancer, right? Cancer is a non-infectious disease, but it's a deadly disease. Most of them get it. Problem is that symptoms are not shown in the early stages. It goes to a very later stage, and when it goes to later stages, treatment becomes very difficult. So that is another class of diseases which we call as the non-infectious diseases. Okay, but as I was telling you, not only these two things, many lifestyle changes also would bring about change in our health, and one of them is the drug and the alcohol abuses. People drink, smoke, consume more of alcohol, and this consumption will always lead to change in their functioning of their organs and their organ systems, and all this are considered to be very bad. So in this particular chapter we will be considering about various diseases, various infectious, non-infectious diseases, some of their methods to treatment, and talk more with relation to cancer and AIDS, taking an example of infectious and non-infectious diseases. Right? So let us start off learning more about some of the common diseases in humans. Common diseases in humans. Now, when we started studying about microorganisms, we were telling that microorganisms, we have various types. We have bacteria, viruses, fungi, protozoans, helminths, so on and so forth. And one thing that I would always like to tell is that not all of these microorganisms, or those organisms which have which cause diseases, not all of them would cause a disease in the first place. We get diseases only from very few specific microorganisms, and those microorganisms can infect warm-blooded animals, to that particular cells, to that particular tissues, to that particular organ system, and so on. Right? So we have a group of organisms which are helpful to us, which we will speak later in our third chapter under this unit. And similarly, we have certain group of organisms which have the ability to cause a disease. Now that group of disease causing microorganisms, not microorganisms specifically, so many of them are macroorganisms as well, we call them as pathogens. You know what is pathos? Pathos means dull, pathos means sick, and pathogens means these are the ones which gives pathos. Okay. Now these pathogens are the disease causing microorganisms. Now you see that most of these pathogens are parasites. Almost all of them are parasites, but very few of them, they cause certain disease, and they are present in our body without giving any symptom. Later they start giving rise to some symptoms, but otherwise you see all these organisms would need us, would need our living host, such that they can all grow inside. Okay. Now what do? Now you see that these organisms, the pathogens, would enter into our body. Okay, they enter into our body. Now how do they enter into our body? They can enter by water, they can enter by air, they can enter by food, they can enter by any method. Okay, we will discuss all of them later. So you see that the pathogens can enter into our body, and then you know what happens? As soon as it enters into our body, it kind of gets acclimatized. Okay, then it gets acclimatized. What do you mean by acclimatized? So you see that it gets adjusted to our body temperature, our cells, our nutrition levels, our energy levels, so on and so forth. So it takes a small time. A small time would be something like, you know, a day or two for few viruses, and then as soon as they get kind of acclimatized, they start beginning their action, and their action is where they would start multiplying in their number. And when they do so, okay, this results in some of the changes. What are the changes that you see there? You see that their vital activities gets changed. Their vital activities gets changed. So when I say vital activities, it might be body temperature, or maintaining thickness of the blood, and so on. And sometimes all these changes in their vital activities will result in two important problems. One is there is a morphological damage, is the damage that would happen in their structures. The cells might change their structure, the organs might lose their structure, so on and so forth. So there might be a morphological damage, or you also or you can see something that we call as the functional damage, where the particular cell, particular tissue or the organ would just not function. Okay, and by doing all this, they get more acclimatized, and they again divide, and again it results in much more of this, and so it's basically, you know, some kind of invasion. Okay, so this invasion keeps on happening till the microorganisms have some kind of, you know, uh, it feels that it is their home, but we are suffering for that. Okay, so till that condition is reached, you know, this cycle keeps on repeating. So first and foremost thing that you see is the entry. You can always stop the entry of microorganisms into our body. Eat good cooked food, fresh food, and maintain the hygiene levels. Half of the pathogens will be prevented from entering into our body. And then go to the acclimatized factor. See that your body's immune system is quite strong, such that they do not get acclimatized in the next phase. And when you do so, all the rest of the things that the pathogen causes, all this can be stopped. Okay, in fact, you need not do anything much for all this, because you see, the way we are created itself is so beautiful. We have a skin which covers our entire body. Yes, just imagine, no, if you did not have skin, how much you would be exposed to microorganisms. But that does not happen, because our skin kind of acts like a physical barrier. It does not allow the microorganisms to enter into our system. Beautiful, right? Then we have the entire food that we eat going into our stomach, and in the stomach we have a pH of around 1.2 or something, right? We have hydrochloric acid, and this hydrochloric acid, the digestive enzymes present in our gut, that has the ability to kill most of the microorganisms. In fact, many, even spores which are resistant to heats and temperatures, even they can grow very well. They can kill all these organisms well, and our pathogens are killed by 98% most of the time in our stomach itself. Right? So our body is made such that we have a wonderful mechanism to prevent most of the diseases. Okay, but with our knowledge of understanding about disease, we can kind of control the entry and prevent their acclimatization in their body. You can see that we can just be free of disease. That should be a great thing, right? But in spite of all this, you know, we have various diseases that we humans get. Okay, so there are few diseases we will talk with respect to our country, our conditions, environmental conditions, some of the diseases that are caused by pathogens. So let us talk about the first disease, which is called as typhoid. Typhoid is one disease which was a kind of epidemic few years back. Very strong, non-treatable disease. People used to really suffer, but many of them, they used to overcome that. It's not that it was fatal. Typhoid is a kind of fever which is caused because of the infection of organism called as Salmonella typhi. It's the organism called as the Salmonella typhi. It's a bacterium. Salmonella typhi is a bacterium, and it causes fever. Okay, you know what would happen? Salmonella typhi would enter into our gut system. So if I take contaminated food, contaminated water, what would happen is this microorganism would go into my stomach. Now that acid of the stomach will not do anything. It is not able to kill this microorganism, so it goes into the small intestine. Okay, it goes into the small intestine. Now as soon as it goes into the small intestine, I am sure you know that there are this villi kind of thing, the finger like projections which absorbs all the nutrients, and this villi absorbs Salmonella typhi also. Now through that, Salmonella typhi which is there in the food enters into our bloodstream. Okay, now as soon as the bloodstream is contaminated with Salmonella typhi, you see that there is a slight fever. The fever is somewhere around 99 degrees to 100 degrees only. It's too high fever, somewhere between 39 degrees to 40 degrees Celsius or 9900 degrees Fahrenheit of heat. But this fever is one. Then comes one more important symptom which we call as weakness. Now this I am sure we all of us have all the time, but it should not be linked to the weakness obtained from Salmonella typhi infection. So weakness is one more symptom. Then they have generally other symptoms like stomach pain, and then people also have headache. Then there is something like constipation. That is the next symptom. Constipation is another symptom, and very importantly we have something that we call as the loss of appetite. Now these are the important symptoms. So generally they check for the fever if it's not going too high, weakness, and with any of these it's generally given as can be diagnosed as Salmonella typhi. But you know what? Just by looking at these symptoms, we cannot say that the person has typhoid, because any kind of infection, we will have this, this and this. So the presence of Salmonella typhi in our blood sample is confirmed by a test which is called as a Weidel test. Okay, that's a test called as the Weidel test. So what they do is they take the blood sample and they add certain liquid, some kind of solutions, and they check if the solution coagulates. If there is coagulation taking place, then you see that the person has Salmonella typhi in the blood. So that kind of analysis is what they do, which is called as the Weidel test. Okay, now if this typhoid is not treated at the early stage, you see that the entire intestinal perforations take place. Okay, the entire intestine, you can see some small perforations, and if not treated properly and if neglected, you see it might also cause death. Okay, so people have to be extremely careful about this disease. It is treatable, but one has to be extremely careful. By the way, you know why this disease is called as typhoid? Any idea? Okay, there is this story, the story of cook. Her name was Mary Mallon. Okay, Mary Mallon was a cook basically, and she was cooking for so many people. Okay, and you know what? She was not affected by this organism, but people who used to eat her food over a period of time, all of them got typhoid, and they were being treated. Again, she used to cook for someone and they used to get this disease, and finally they realized after long investigation procedures, they got to know that Mary Mellon, who is also called as Typhoid Mary, okay, she's nicknamed as Typhoid Mary. That lady used to go and serve food every day, and that food which she was cooking was contaminated, and since she was giving this contaminated food to the people, and all the people who ate her food, they used to get this disease which is called as the typhoid. So basically this is one very commonly seen pathogenic disease, but again talking about this particular disease, it's not fatal, is treatable, but yes, it a person has to be very strict, follow the diet, eat good food, and then should be on medication such that he removes, kills the Salmonella typhi. So similarly, we have few other diseases like pneumonia, we have the common cold, malaria, and many other diseases which we will discuss in our next class. Okay, so I hope you have understood and you do not have any doubts. If you have any doubts, make a note of it. We can discuss it in our live class. Okay, so see you in our next class. Till then, bye.